ZenlessZoneZero has just announced their 1.4 live stream, and with it they have added an insane amount of quality of life, an insane amount of new content, and honestly the character we've been waiting for this whole time, Miyabi. Now with Miyabi there are a couple things that are going to be released, including a short film, which is crazy, but she is the poster child for ZenlessZoneZero, alongside her character teaser on 12/17, in addition to her character demo on the 18th. Now alongside Miyabi's release is also going to be a new area, which is really cool because it looks like it's a fishing kind of area, in addition to it being kind of port-sidey, which is something that we haven't seen too much of yet. But then of course we've finally been introduced to what Miyabi does and what this whole ice fire anomaly conundrum is, which we've been explained. To be clear, essentially what she does is, I guess, a load of damage that enhances further anomaly damage, which is kind of interesting, or at least the way that it sounds. It seems as though she synergizes with or benefits from being paired with either disorder or another anomaly. Whatever the case is, it looks like she's supposed to be a damage dealer, which would make sense because of course Miyabi is a poster child damage dealing looking character. However, with freeze, shatter, the frostburn effect, it would appear as though she not only debuffs and shatters and applies a significant amount of debuffing to the enemy themselves, it would also appear as though she does an insane amount of damage herself too. Now, of course, this would be impressive by itself, but she also has a load of different aspects or different features to her abilities that allow her to, I guess, kind of explode. This includes things like her EX special giving her stacks of a specific system that we're not super familiar with quite yet. But from what we can tell right now, using her EX special will give her a certain stack, or using certain abilities in her kit in general will give her additional stacks that will allow her to do bigger damage using her basic attack, which looks to be like this insane stance Shimotsuki, which you're seeing on screen right now. But while all this looks really cool and almost feels like an attack agent, keep in mind and remember once again that Miyabi is an anomaly agent. And now if you take a look at specifically her additional ability on screen right now, what it reads is that you increase the damage of Shimotsuki's damage by 60%, and when any squad member triggers disorder, Miyabi obtains 2 points of Fallen Frost, and basic attacks during the next Shimotsuki stance will ignore 30% of the target's ice res. That was a lot to read and a lot to kind of maybe understand. However, what you're actually seeing here is a character that does then need to be paired with, well, another anomaly character. Now, of course, this begs the question, oh, should I use Bernice? Should I use someone like Yanagi, who obviously uses or applies anomalies and disorder very quickly? Personally, what I imagine currently is that with how insane a character like Bernice is, that means that she's pretty much just slated to be used specifically with Miyabi, alongside, well, of course, Yanagi, who can also be used alongside Miyabi, but kind of depends right now, or it remains to be seen whether Miyabi will actually pair well with Yanagi, especially because it feels like the two of them both want to be on field at times. However, from what I understand about Yanagi and her ability to be used as, well, just a character that stays on field whenever she has enough energy, it appears as though both Miyabi and Yanagi will definitely be able to synergize well with each other. However, we'll see exactly what ends up being the best team composition. Now, they also did end up showing us some of Miyabi's ultimates, and honestly, it looks fantastic. Like, all of the abilities of this Miyabi character look absolutely perfect. Her ultimate included is like this insane multi explosion that increases the damage of her ice damage. Like, oh, it's just fantastic. What I'm seeing right now is that you'll probably use something like her ultimate earlier rather than later, so that you can use something like her ultimate into the big Shimotsuki strike alongside the EX special. But from what we've seen currently, she's slated to be one of the most insane DPS that Zenless has ever released. But now that leads us into Harumasa. Honestly, looks really cool and does remind me a lot of Child, especially with how weavy he is between his swords and his bow. Now, between his EX special, his basic attacks, and things of this nature, honestly, it just looks like he synergizes with a lot of the typical attack agent elements, and this is, of course, accentuated by his additional ability, which allows him to be paired specifically with stunners and things of that nature in order to buff his team. Now, again, to be clear, there are a number of abilities that I won't go too deep into. However, it seems like he shoots out a bunch of arrows. He can weave between his close basic attacks and his ranged attacks. And it does seem like he has some sort of kind of, I guess, ammo system, although I don't see anything on screen currently. Whatever the case is, he has a load of attacks, he has a load of skills, and he also applies, I guess, a number of attacks and debuffs to the enemy. This is, of course, alongside the debuff X marks the spot, which there's a lot of things to unpack about Harumasa. He looks really cool though, but that isn't actually the biggest thing about Harumasa, and the reveal to Harumasa, or reveal about Harumasa, is not as crazy as the fact actually that, well, we'll actually be seeing Harumasa for free on everyone's accounts, which is absolutely ridiculous, and this is going to be coming at the start of, well, 1.4 and whenever Miyabi's banner drops at the same time. Now, in terms of what the actual details of it are, all you need to do is basically play through the new content, and you can level up your agent for free. The name of the event that'll be releasing alongside the free Harumasa would be called Special Visitor. And again, I'll include a link to the kind of short summary of exactly everything that we need to know about Harumasa in the comment or in the description down below. But long story short, we're getting a free S rank Harumasa, which is absolutely insane. Now, alongside Miyabi's release is an entire event and kind of world building event that kind of revolves around her, and that includes, well, going around in the hollow and playing as like a little Bangboos, and you have more activities to do, which is kind of cool. It reminds me a little bit of when I used to play Ratchet and Clank, and instead of just always playing as Ratchet, they gave us a time to kind of interact with as Clank, and this is kind of what you're seeing too, where you now get to play as the Bangboos. There's rewards and activities around the world that you're seeing, which is really cool. But ultimately, all of this kind of just gives you more time to walk around as Miyabi and some of the other characters, which I do think is pretty cool, especially since it does feel like the game is definitely more instanced. But alongside this and the infinite number of new resources that we're being given, I'm a big fan. Now, we're also being given a new mode known as Lost Void, which is really cool. Now, I know some of you guys probably don't like doing things like Hollow Zero. However, this is actually pretty cool. Now, formerly, if you're familiar with things like Simulated Universe, or if you're familiar with the current Hollow Zero setup, it does feel a little bit repetitive, and at most you gain a little bit more damage or things of this nature to kind of speed through or kind of get your weekly rewards. In general, I can understand how some people may find it uninteresting or unoriginal. However, they have actually added some new twists to this new exploration-esque kind of combat mode, where you can not only gain a number of new Rizonia, but you can also change the gear that you have, buff up the character that you have, in addition to giving them new abilities and new attacks too. Now, if that was just it, like, you know, a new attack, what are they going to give you? Something like a charged Bangboos attack or an assist, whatever. However, actually, it's a whole new animation for some of the characters. I mean, take a look at this Ellen's skill, like what, and Yanagi's ability is like this dancing, you know, hanging from the ceiling chandelier kind of AoE attack. And this is, of course, not even the half of it. They've apparently added this to a number of characters, which is super sick. But then they went even further beyond with a new activity where now you have a new piece of boss content that you need to clear for, well, rewards. But unlike your typical, oh, I'm just gonna beat this up with whatever I have, they've actually limited what you have access to, which does kind of present a challenge, and it does also force you to try new characters. As you're seeing on the screen, or as you saw on the screen previously, there were only a few characters that were actually available to access here, and I'm sure in some way, shape, or form they may give you certain characters, or they may add certain trial characters in the future depending on how they want to run this route. However, I do also acknowledge that if you are someone that only has like 4 characters built, this might be a little bit challenging, but we'll see how that ends up panning out. Overall, I think this is an interesting step forward, and it does present a challenge to a game that honestly doesn't really have any currently. But something I want to go back to for a moment is also the fact that we've been introduced to a couple new Bangboos, including Gulliver, who we saw formerly in the test runs, specifically in 1.3. But also the fact that they've changed the ways that Ultimate works in general. Now, if you aren't familiar with it already, the way that current Ultimates work out is that you have your Ultimate. For one character, you generate decibels, and well, that's kind of it. You get to use one character's, you know, special ability per encounter or per X amount of decibels generated. However, with the new system to Ultimates, every single character now gets to use their ultimate. This is really cool because what's the point of giving half the cast an ultimate animation if you can't use them? However, we'll have to see exactly how this gets tuned, because from what we're seeing, it is exactly as it sounds. Everyone gets to use their ultimate. And I love how this is panning out with just how cool a multi-ultimate team sounds. However, for the balance of the game, if you're able to use something like Bernice, Yanagi, and Miyabi's ultimate all at the same time, obviously everything would just die. We'll have to wait and see exactly how they tune things. However, I have a feeling that they'll end up changing things in a specific way, or adding maybe some additional stats to enemies so that they'll actually not get one shot the second that you open up into a fight. And now there are also new events that honestly I think are pretty cool. ZenlessZoneZero has at this point kind of gained a reputation for adding new mini games and kind of fun looking side quest games, including Vampire Survivor, the Mario Kart-esque thing, which admittedly was not as insane as I thought it would be. But they also added tower defense here, which is kind of crazy. Like what's going on here? Like this is very reminiscent of, I don't know, like Bloons or Arknights or something, which is really cool. But this activity also gives you rewards, which is the major thing that everyone loves. And of course, there are your more generic rewards as well from other events where you do, well, HIA activities. You get to meet new characters. There's collab designers. There's new art. There's kind of just an event every single week, to be honest, in this game, which is pretty cool. And as usual, there's also a 2x event, which increases the amount of rewards and stuff that you get, which is honestly crazy because it feels like every single event, every single version now we're getting this, but who cares? I'm not going to complain about free rewards. But now we have to talk about the new disc drive sets. We've got a 2-piece set that gives you crit damage. And also, when your anomaly mastery exceeds 150 points, the critical damage of the wearer increases by 30%. Additionally, when any squad member applies freeze or triggers shatter, the equipper's crit rate increases 12%, lasting 15 seconds. If this sounds like you got an insane amount of crit rate on your face and from your body, yeah, that's exactly what this is. Obviously, this is skewed specifically towards someone like Miyabi. However, based on what we're seeing right now, it does mean that unless if Miyabi's base stats start at something like 115 anomaly, or unless if she gains it from her W engine, or from, well, her core passive, we'll have to see whether or not you'll actually have to commit to running Anomaly Mastery as your 6th slot, specifically on Miyabi. Otherwise, I'd imagine you'd literally lose value on using this set otherwise. This is honestly probably one of the craziest disc drive sets that we've ever seen. I'm not sure whether or not, you know, this Anomaly Mastery 46% is going to be worth doing something like replacing any character and giving them an Anomaly Mastery 6 slot instead. But for characters that are able to get Anomaly Mastery, including characters like probably Miyabi, this will look pretty cool. Now, I know a couple of you guys are probably going to be curious whether or not someone like Jane can also use this, and the answer is no, guys. The crit damage and the crit effects of Jane's abilities will not be affected by this crit damage or this, and the crit rate that she gains will not increase her chance of critting. Don't use this set on Jane. And then we have this set down below, which also seems to be another assisty, kind of supportive-esque 2-piece, 4-piece set. On its 2-piece, it gives you attack percent, and on its 4-piece, whenever any squad members enter the field using a quick assist, all squad members gain 1 stack of Astral, which, you know, you can stack up to 3 and last 15 seconds. And each stack of Astral increases the damage dealt of the character entering the field using a quick assist by 8%. And although this is unique to one character per team, it does mean that you can kind of buff this one character that gets, you know, I guess quick assisted on by up to 24%, which could be pretty cool and does offer, I guess, a character who wants to be more burst heavy to get onto field. This does feel kind of reminiscent of something like a Hormone Punk sort of situation, but since its damage dealt increased and it's not combat attack, we'll see to what extent this is really usable or to what extent this is powerful, but we'll have to see and do a bit more calculating, especially because we're being given basically 2 new sets that both look pretty amazing and honestly give pretty good value to the characters that can use them. Now, this is the interim part where I should tell you that Void Hunter is the redemption code, which, by the way, if you haven't done so, you should definitely redeem currently. And also, if you haven't, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, following the channel. Haha, brief interlude. But then finally, guys, they also added a bit of, well, quality of life, to say the least, in terms of the UI. As you're seeing right now, if you're ever curious about what you need to level up a character, or if you ever need a material preview for a character, they put this all into a UI specifically. They kind of saw all of us making infographics for characters and they said, screw it, we're gonna do it ourselves. And as you're seeing on screen right now, there's things like what disk drive you should be using, what slot main stats you should be using, what the priority for certain upgrades should be. They also include what or where you should be unlocking things, how many resources you'll need, and it's a bit of a plan as they describe it, which looks honestly pretty amazing. Now, alongside this as well, you could also ask characters to, I believe, spend quality time with you, which is honestly pretty sick. They walk around with you and they follow you, which I'd honestly say is a lot nicer, because normally otherwise you'd just be following through, you know, some robotic pattern of like enemies or of allies or friends who will just show up once in a while in exact locations. But now you can kind of ask them to hang out with you and you can take photos with them, which is also really cool, honestly. But guys, that was pretty much everything that was announced. We're getting Harumasa, we're getting all these free goodies, the new events, everything is absolutely insane. Miyabi looks insane, the new disc drive sets look insane. The quality of life that they added to the game is pretty baffling, to be honest. I didn't even think that there was that much more that you could add to the game, but between the new events, the new characters, everything looks sick. I'm super excited for 1.4 for ZenlessZoneZero. As a bit of a sneak preview, I'll probably be seeing just how good Miyabi is at M6 to see if, I don't know, if she just one-shots everything. I'll probably do that actually on my live account, because I'm not gonna lie, Miyabi looks so sick, guys. But as always, if you enjoyed today's content, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. Thanks again for watching. Hope you guys learned. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to check out the rest of my socials, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.